So this new class, it is to some extent similar to something that we have previously built here on the channel. So let me talk to you a little bit about them, because while they are very similar, they're also very different on itself as well. We have, for example, right here today we're building the Mindweaver class. But you also have the Mystic class, which is one of the most popular classes on the entirety of the mod manager community in here, because it was one of the first mods that were available. Now, the Mystic subclass is to some extent balanced a little bit more. This one as well, they are trying to make it balanced, but it's still very powerful. You're still not going to feel like you're cheating, and this is also a subclass that is available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox as well. So you don't really have to worry about that. All you have to do is just you go right in here, like always, to your always very useful mod manager. And then you go to subclasses, or like just classes on itself. Subclasses, classes, any of will work just fine. Here you will find the Mindweaver class. It has quite a bit of subclass as well. We have a little bit of a little update in here, so might as well take care of that right here before we build a character. We're going to be building a warden, if I remember correctly, a psychic warrior. Essentially what this class does is that it uses the power of the mind to enhance the already power and battle prowess that some classes may or may not have. Now, on the other hand, it's very easy to build, let me tell you that much. If you're having issues, yes, I am here to help you, guide you through the leveling and the nuances of leveling up classes, but still fairly easy to build. The nice thing about the Mystic class, I'd say that it is to some extent it requires a learning curve for you to be able to use it properly. If you want to make a very broken, powerful class out of the Mystic class, you can, but also you can mess up the class real bad if you do not know what you're doing and how you're doing it. In here just to guide you through a little bit of the things that I'd like to take, the things that I like to do with my class. But let me tell you, this class is just powerful because of being powerful. Let me give you an example. Fighters are already very powerful if you build them properly, if you have the proper itemization with them, and by using certain specific armors, items, weapons, and having the proper stats and bonuses and proficiencies and ability scores and what have you. Now, what we're going to be doing today is that we basically have like a fighter plus a fighter plus a fighter because it can do the very same thing as a fighter, but it's going to do it better. So if a fighter is already broken, then this guy is just going to be even more. Even though that they are still trying for this to be balanced to some extent, the values and numbers that you will see in here, you will see that they are trying to make them, like, to some extent not make you like godlike character or feel that you're cheating, but still going to be pretty powerful. It is a very stat hungry class though, I will tell you that much. So for the ability scores, your main ability scores, at least for the one that we're making in here, so we have right here the Mindweaver, and then we have the Force Blade. We're going to leave the Psionic Warden for a different video. For now, it's going to be the Force Blade. This is essentially going to be a warrior that uses psychic powers to enhance your battle prowess in here. And the ability scores are going to be somewhat very interesting, because it is going to be a very stat hungry class. You want to have strength, constitution, intelligence. Those are going to be your bread and butter. Ideally, your strength and intelligence, those are the ones that you should have on 16 and 16 respectively. And constitution, it's also very useful to sustain concentration, because concentration is going to be somewhat of a source of a DPS for us on certain later spells that we'll be using later on, that we'll be discussing later on. So dexterity, wisdom, charisma are not going to be that important if you want to have the saving throws for this or for that. That's up to you and your personal preference. Dexterity is going to downgrade your initiative quite a bit, but still, you're so powerful. You're going to be so tanky that you're not going to mind that much that the enemy is going to start that turns before that you do. So that's something that you need to have in mind as well. That being said, once we level up, this is going to be your stats, how they are going to be looking like on Act 1 and 2 of the game. Once you respect on the Act 3 of the game, your stats should be looking something like this. You're going to be downgrading all of your strength because on the Act 3 of the game, we have access to the Gauntlets of Giant Heal Strength. We also have access to the Amulet of Constitution. So we have a whole bunch of points in here to have a little bit more saving throws, or if you want to be, for this character to be the main face of the party, then you can also have this character be like they have like dexterity. He also have some kind of proficiencies in intimidation, if I'm not mistaken. This actually comes from my my class being a human, I believe. But yeah, I like for my main character to be the face of the party, so I like to have high charisma in here. Remember that this is only going to be true on the third act of the game, and I also think that I want to lower my wisdom right here a little bit, because I do want to have a little bit more of initiative right here, and then we have extra 2 cheeky little points right here into wisdom, because that's going to give us a little bit of an extra saving throws against wisdom saving throws. And so ideally, this is how your stats should be looking like once you reach the Act 3 of the game. Little bit of an extra thing that you're going to receive on the level 2 of your character, you receive the subclass feature of the Mind Surge. The Mind Surge is going to be something that you can toggle on and off. This is passive. If you use it, you're essentially going to make some of your spells be stronger, and the game is going to highlight which are the spells that are going to be affected by the Mind Surge, but it's also going to give you the astral instability every time that you use it for a prolonged period of time. So you have to be toggling it on and off, because, well, the astral instability, it's basically something like, think of like the chaotic surge from the sorcerer, but it's also going to give you the mental exhaustion, and basically this doesn't allow you to use it that much, to be spamming it. So be sure that when you want to use it, you are using it against the proper enemy. So it's a extra little something that you can use against stronger enemies. Now the spells are very interesting. You don't really have to worry about the spells that much while you're leveling up and while you're using this class, because once you reach level 12, you are going to get access to all of them. There is like really not a concession that you need to make when it comes to spells. One thing that I do advise for you to take ASAP, at least on the second level, is the Ethereal Barrier, which is the bread and butter, at least for my playstyle in here. This gives you armor class by 2. And I also like to use the Astral Blade Burst, because this is basically AoE. So these are the ones that I like to take at the beginning, but you can take whichever one that you like. Remember that you're not going to lose them. You're still going to get them as you level up all of these guys right here, alongside with other ones. Now the fighting style, this is also going to be a concession. If you want to be really overkill and be really overpowered, then you can, for example, have like something like dueling, because while you're using a melee weapon that is not two-handed and that is not versatile, so for example a rapier, you can have additional damage with this and still use a shield. So that's very, very powerful. Dueling, it's very, very powerful. However, and you can use a shield for sure. However, I like to use the great weapon fighting, just because I like a little bit more the DPS in here. We already have like an overkill and very durable character in here that has access to heavy armor. As a matter of fact, the heavy armor actually comes from the Force Blade on itself, so you don't really need that much of protection, and because of the spells that we have right here. So for example, because of the Ethereal Barrier, this gives you a +2 armor class. So yes, more shield, it's a little bit overkill, but that's something that you can do for sure. Now at level 3, you'll actually have access to the cerebral enhancements as well. I like to take the Fleet of Mind and the Intellectual Agility as my first choices, either Fleet of Minds or Intellectual Agility. If you feel that you're receiving too much damage and you need to CC enemies before they start their turn and things like that, this is going to give you initiative based on an intelligence modifier, and since intelligence is one of our main stats, then this is something that you are going to be taking for sure as well. But Fleet of Mind is also going to give you quite a bit of mobility throughout the battlefield. Now this is something that I also want to give you a little bit of a what you're going to be doing, because as you level up, you are going to be taking the ability improvements. However, first and foremost, for this character at least, we're going to be taking the Great Weapon Master at level 4. But I just want to stress out that at level 8, for example, since you're not going to have access on the second act of the game, you're going to be level 8, you're going to take the ability improvements into Strength, because at that time you haven't respected your character and you're still going to be using your attack rolls and damage rolls from Strength natively. But once you reach the third act of the game, since you're going to be using some spells that add the intelligence modifier and there's some spells that add the strength modifier to your attacks, so yes, you're using both strength and intelligence as damage and attack rolls modifier for your spells and your actions, because you already have 23 strength. Because of the Gauntlets of Giant Heal Strength, at that time you are going to be using the ability improvement for intelligence to raise intelligence to 20. But while you don't have the gauntlets, then you're going to be taking ability improvements into strength to improve your attack and damage rolls, if that makes sense. Now, on level 6, you get access to a one more Sea Reveal enhancement in here, and I like to take the Mindweaver Sanctuary to have a little bit more of defense against spells. You can take Kinetic Deflection, but still, we already have so much armor class because of the spells that we have right here that I think that it's not that much of a cool thing to have this thing, and I'd say that it's more powerful to defend against spells because of the Mindweaver Sanctuary. Level 8, we get access to defense, and since we took the Great Weapon Fighting, defense is going to give us more armor class right in here. Remember, I want to stress out what I told you before. If you're in the second act of the game, your strength should be at 16. At this point, on level 8, you're going to take an ability improvement to raise the 16 on your strength to 18. However, this character is being respected on the third act of the game, and I already have access to the Gauntlets of Giant Heal Strength, meaning that I'm going to increase my intelligence, because there are some spells that use the intelligence ability score and ability modifier to increase the damage of my spells and attacks, and you're still going to be using some spells that are going to add your strength and modifier for attacks and damage rolls. That becomes even more relevant at level 9 when you get the Astral Dominance. So for example, like I mentioned, there are some spells that are going to have the strength modifier for their attacks and damage roll. But if you have the Astral Dominance, you can now deal additional damage equal to your intelligence modifier, meaning that the more intelligence that you have, the more damage that you'll be dealing. At level 10, you get access to one of my favorite spells of this class. This is going to require concentration, and as a matter of fact, concentration is not going to be that important until this point when you have the Force Dominion. Essentially, Force Dominion is going to cause an aura around you that is going to debuff the enemies that you have around you, and it's also going to be dealing AoE damage each turn. So each turn, they have to pass a Wisdom saving throw for them not to take 1d12 force damage, but also their armor class and movement speed is reduced. Their armor class is reduced by 2 as well, and also if they fail to save the saving throw, they are going to be pulled towards you, that it's going to restrict their mobility. Essentially, this is going to create a force field of keeping the enemy close to you, to the killing machine. If you use this spell alongside with the armor class spell, that's just basically my bread and butter for this class. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you the 3 spells that I have been using for this class to be very powerful, and it's just nasty, dude. Now, like I mentioned, this is a very broken class just for the sake of being broken, because all of that on itself, it should already be enough and sufficient for a class to be very powerful. As a matter of fact, if you didn't have the extra attack for this class, it would still be a very, very powerful and very, very viable class that has to make concessions. This feels like the monitor was trying to do something that it doesn't have like concession, and it's just powerful because of the sake of being powerful, because at level 5 you actually did receive the extra attack with this subclass, but then again at level 11 you get the improved extra attack, meaning that you can get to attack once and twice and thrice, and if you have a hasted character, that's a 4th, 5th and 6th time, and if you're using the Great Weapon Master because of the ability bonus, then you can attack a 7th time with attacks that are very, very devastating. So this is something very, very powerful indeed. And then finally, at level 12, you are going to raise your intelligence to level 20. Remember that because of the giant heals gauntlets, you're going to have 23 strength, 14 dexterity, 23 constitution because of the amulet of constitution, 21 I can remember very well, don't hate me for that, at 20 intelligence, 12 and 16 wisdom and charisma respectively. So the itemization of the character, like I previously mentioned, is going to be that one of a simple warrior, outfitting the best proper warrior that you have on your crew. As for the armor, the best possible heavy armor that you have. Right, for example, right here we have the armor of persistence. I like to take this one because it gives you 20 armor class, but also all of the incoming damage is reduced by 2 because of the magical plate trait that this thing has. The cloak protection to have an extra little cheeky armor class right there, and then we have the Helda's boots that allows us not to get prone on the ground so that they cannot interrupt our concentration. Then we have the gauntlets of giant heal strength to increase our strength to 23 while you're leveling up, and while you still have a little bit of strength, then you can be using the gauntlets of Dark Justicia to add 1d4 necrotic damage to your damages rolls and things like that. The Killer Sweetheart to have critical hits on demand, the Strange Conduit Ring to have 1d4 psychic damage whenever we are concentrated in something, and also the Amulet of Greater Health to increase our constitution so that the enemy cannot break our concentration, but to break our concentration they have to deal damage to us, and that's very difficult for them because of the spell that we're using, that it's going to, at the end of the day, a hasty character right here is going to have 26 armor class, which is very, it's not the best armor class in the game, but it's very powerful indeed. Now finally, how should I use my character? The bread and butter, the things that I like to do before I start any fights is going to be using my psychic shield or the ethereal barrier. What this is basically going to do, it's going to give you +2 to your armor class, and also allows you to move throughout the battlefield without causing attacks of opportunity. So this is very powerful. Essentially that's 24 armor class that we have right here, and if you haste your character with, let's say, a mage or a potion, then you can have 26 armor class, allowing you to basically solo anything that you would want to solo. Then the next thing that I like to use is the Force Dominion. Like I said, this is going to create an aura that is going to debuff the enemy, and it's going to diminish their movement, and it's also going to reduce their armor classes by quite a lot. And then the final thing that I like to use is the Astral Blade Burst, because this is AoE damage, and remember that you can spam this thing up to 7 times in one single turn. So if you have clustered up enemies, then you can kill them in 2 single swings of this thing. I like to use the Mark for Destruction whenever I'm fighting elites like Catheric Thorn or things like that, because it gives you advantage on attack rolls against them, and it's also going to give you more damage against them based on your spell casting ability modifier. So the more intelligence and strength that you have, the more damage that you're going to be dealing with them to them. And then if you use the Mind Search is going to improve these spells right here, the first burst and the Astral Blade Burst. So remember only to toggle it whenever you're going to be using the spells. And that's essentially how this class works. Very broken and very powerful. If you like content, like and never, super appreciated. Nostalgia there, you're gorgeous and beautiful person. You're in the day gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join the Discord. Have a beautiful day, goodbye.